Again, everyone. My name is Leah Martinez. I'm the interim project manager for the teacher preparation program at Rio Hondo College, the Grow Your Own Teacher Pathway program. And we're so excited, of course, to have you with us bright and early this Saturday uh, as we come together to explore non traditional pathways for educators of color. Your commitment to being here really speaks volumes about the passion and the purpose that you bring to creating meaningful change in education. So today you'll hear from our inspiring keynote speaker. You will engage in hands-on workshops and connect with a community of educators and advocates who, like you, are breaking barriers and shaping the future. This symposium is, of course, packed with resources and connections to support your path as a trailblazing educator. And don't forget, the more you participate, the more chances you have to win in our opportunity drawing. So we hope to see you throughout the whole day. Now, here's our long partner from the Center for Collaborative Education, Yvonne Ribas, to also share a few words with us.
Thank you so much, Leah. Welcome to the Change Symposium, everyone. It is amazing to see you all here this beautiful Saturday morning. My name is Yvonne Ribas. I serve as the Director of Programs at the Center for Collaborative Education, CCE. We are so honored to co-host this conference with Rio Hondo College. CCE and Rio Hondo have a deep history as partners in providing programming to empower, inspire, and support future teachers at the community college level. Our work exemplifies the spirit of this conference that is creating hope and nurturing growth in education. Our expanding work focuses on developing, scaling, and sustaining non-traditional pathways for educators of color and community and school-driven educators for one simple reason. Every student, irrespective of their cultural or linguistic backgrounds, abilities, or socioeconomic status, deserves to have fully qualified teachers who reflect the student population and who fight for a good education for every student. I hope you enjoyed the conference today, and thank you for supporting our mission and our work. Back to you, Leah.
All right, a little bit about us. So, as Yvonne already mentioned, we are partnering in this together. This event is proudly brought to you by Rio Hondo College Career and Workforce Education and Education Pathway, in collaboration, of course, as we said, with the Center for Collaborative Education. Rio Hondo is dedicated to advancing social justice and equity as an anti-racist institution, supporting students in achieving their academic and career goals through degree, certificate, transfer, and lifelong learning opportunities. The education pathway at Rio Hondo College focuses on preparing students for success in teaching and other careers in education, empowering the next generation of change makers in our schools and communities. Now it's my pleasure to pass the mic again to Yvonne.
Thank you. So just a few words about CCE. CCE is a nonprofit organization with a mission of bringing communities and schools together to increase educational equity and justice for positive impact on student and community outcomes. CCE has a deep history and foundational work in teacher and principal development in both Los Angeles and Boston, Massachusetts since 1994. Most recently, CCE obtained approval from U.S. Department of Labor to develop California's first education pathway pre-apprenticeship to teacher apprenticeship program. We are so excited to launch this work in spring 2025. Our current work in the Grow Your Own Teacher Pathway program in partnership with Rio Hondo, Cerritos, and West LA colleges is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Our programs aim to address the critical teacher shortages and develop a diverse teacher workforce through a community-based approach for equity, empowerment, and excellence for our program participants and the communities we serve. We're also very grateful to have partnerships with most of the regional CSU and UC campuses, as well as partnerships with the community college's numerous feeder school districts. Together, we're committed to building non-traditional pathways for educators. Back to you, Leah.
All right, we're ready to introduce our keynote speaker, Yvonne Tran.
Oh, we're gonna go audience agreements first.
Yeah, no,
actually.
don't worry. I'm ready to jump in. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Reynolds, and I am a program associate for the Ed Pathways field at CCE. And I'm just going to take us through some quick audience agreements and a grounding statement. So as you participate throughout the day, we ask that you don't interrupt when any of the facilitators and especially our keynote are speaking. But if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be watching. It's advised to be interactive. So like we said, we want to know what you're thinking throughout. We have eyes on the chat at all times. So if you ask something, we'll be sure to get it to the appropriate party. And of course, please mute yourself. We know that you're all joining us from your homes. You might be in a vehicle. You might be cooking some breakfast. So just so that our facilitators can focus and stay tuned to their presentations, we ask that you remain on mute until we ask that you come off. And so a grounding statement that we continually use at CCE is the beauty of anti-racism is that you don't have to pretend to be free of racism to be anti-racist. Anti-racism is the commitment to fight racism wherever you find it, including in yourself, and it's the only way to move forward. And you might be thinking, what does that have to do with this conference? And it's a very broad statement that says we don't have to be free of bias to strive for equity, right? Instead, we recognize the importance of examining and challenging biases, not only within ourselves, but within our classrooms and our institutions. And overall, that's how we can continue to move forward together. And so with that, I will go ahead and pass it to the Dean of Career and Workforce Education at Rio Hondo, Bridget Hernandez, to center us through a land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Nicole. Today, we are very fortunate to be gathered on the unceded land of the Tavonga, Gabrielino, Chumash, and Xish people. I ask you to join me in acknowledgement. The Tavonga, Gabrielino, and Chumash communities and the others that you may name in the chat. There are elders, both past and present, as well as future generations.
Thank you, Bridget. And so I'm not the keynote speaker, but I am introducing our keynote speaker. So Dr. Paulo Macalus. Dr. Paulo Macalus is a proud Anaheim native, is a dedicated advocate for expanding educational opportunities and breaking barriers for underrepresented communities. With over 20 years of experience, he has taught ethnic studies and U.S. history and is currently a tenure-track assistant professor at Cal State University, Los Angeles. In 2016, he was named one of Orange County's top 25 teachers by OC Parenting Magazine. So we are so excited to have Dr. Paulo Macalus speak with us. Please give him a warm welcome and take it away.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that introduction. And thank you so much to the organizers of this event for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here today. So let me share my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? All right. All right, so yes, my name is Paulo Macalus, and I am from the Philippines. I am a 1.5 generation Filipino-American. I immigrated here in 1981, and I am a professor of education at the College of Education at California State University, Los Angeles. I'm also a board member here in my community. I live in Anaheim, and just thank you so much for allowing me to share my journey. I always start with this is actually not my mom, right? This is my mother. She actually was here in the United States going to nursing school. Right after she had me, she went to the United States to seek a better life for us. And then 3 years later, she would later bring me, my sister, and my dad here to the United States. So I always honor all of my presentations with my mother, because if it wasn't for her, I would not be here. And the picture of me in the bottom left is my yaya. I was actually raised for the first 3 years of my life by somebody else. And that's where I'm from. I'm originally from Concepcion, Tarlac in the Philippine Islands. And I'm an immigrant. And all of my family are immigrants. I have 10 aunties and uncles from my aunt's side, from my mom's side, and 10 uncles and aunties from my dad's side. And we came here primarily through the medical field and through the military, right? So how did I become an educator, right? It's weird because all of my aunties and uncles are either military or nurses. Raise your hand if you know a Filipino nurse. um, but all of my cousins, all of us were in education, right? And it wasn't expected, for us to be in the field of education. But it is so important that representation amongst all ethnic groups are in schools today. I'm gonna skip over all the way to junior high or middle school. This is where Benjil Alsadbar, he's a researcher in Filipino American studies, says that for a lot of Filipino Americans, this is where you start to gain your ethnic group consciousness. And this is the time where I actually started to date, right? I started to learn about other Filipino Americans. I started to see myself in my middle school. Uh, but then I also started towards a path of destruction. What do I mean by that? At junior high, I was already exposed to, drugs, gangs, and this is the 90s, y'all, right? It was a huge time for Filipino gangs. And by the time that I reached high school, I was actually jumped into a Filipino gang. 1 minute, 10 guys. And for the first 2 years of my high school experience, I was actually in a Filipino gang. But continuing on to the research of Alsaibar, the gang scene kind of died out towards the end of the 90s, right? A lot of us were like, what the heck are we doing, right? I remember being shot up. I remember when I left the gang, it was in Cerritos. We were at a football game at GAR, and we were literally shot at, right? Leaving the parking lot. And I was just like, what am I doing, y'all? And a lot of us, ended up leaving the gang culture and moving into the party scene, right? So I was part of a party crew. The last 2 years of my high school experiences was actually throwing parties, right? This is back in the days when it wasn't on Instagram or TikTok. We would literally wait after clubs and pass out flyers to folks to come to our events, our underground events. And these are some of the flyers that we had promoted. We were also really big in the car culture scene. In fact, my older sister Jody was an import model. So this is just part of my experience in high school, right? By the time that I reached my senior year, I remember one of my uncles asking, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do after high school? All of my cousins were going to universities, and I had no idea, right? I looked at my transcripts, wasn't even close to getting into college. In fact, I had a 1.87 grade point average by the time I graduated high school. And it was at a time that I think the term y'all use is ghost, right? I kind of ghosted my friends, and I started to hang out with different groups. I started to kind of blame my education on my experiences. I started to lighten my skin, right? It was really a big thing for Filipino Americans, and it still is, sadly, to lighten your skin, right? Put clothespins on your nose so that you, look more American. And, I did graduate, but I was very lost in who I was in form of my identity, right? So what did I do? I decided to attend community college. I attended Cypress College, and this is where I continued to explore a variety of different experiences. I started to surf. I started to go to raves. I actually went to the first original EDCs when they were in Los Angeles and not in Las Vegas. And really, it was in my college experiences that I learned that I wanted to become an educator. Now, real quick, when I was in community college, when I tested, I don't know if y'all test students during their first years, their placement test. I was actually placed in the lowest possible English, the lowest possible math, and it just continued to make me like just blame my culture and my identity, gang culture, party culture on why I was such at a low level in college. And I actually went to 3 different community colleges, and I do not recommend that, right? When you're doing the transcripts, going to university, it's a nightmare. But I did attend Fullerton College and Long Beach City College as well. And then I worked my butt off. I transferred eventually within just 2 years, right? And I credit all of that to Fullerton College. There was a time where I actually went to seek advice from one of the counselors in the counseling center. And also at the same time, I met this, or I had this Filipino professor, right? For the first time, and it's important, representation matters, that I saw a person that looked like me that was teaching me, right? And I was just like, wow, maybe teaching might be my pathway. Maybe teaching might be my calling, right? I love doing this. I didn't like it, in high school because I never saw myself in the curriculum. And the counselor was amazing. She gave us this form called the I Getzy. I don't know if y'all still use the I Getzy. Do you use the I Getzy still? And she was like, this is all you need to take, right? To transfer to Long Beach. And I was like, okay. So I just check marked everything. And within 2 years, I would transfer to Cal State Long Beach to get my degree and my teaching credential. So I'm very grateful that I had these opportunities in the junior college. It really empowered me to start to believe in myself and that I could become a teacher, and I would graduate within 4 years from Long Beach State. All right, fast forward to I was actually one of the youngest teachers. I have taught, my first gig was actually in the Norwalk La Mirada Unified School District. I did teach a K through 3 moderate to severe special ed class. I also taught 4th, 5th grade combination course. But the bulk of my educational career was in high school, right? I taught 7th grade, but really teaching world history, United States history, and government and economics. So I did that for 10 amazing years, and I loved it. I was even advisor to the Filipino Club, which was an awesome experience. A lot of my students were actually in my classes. And I do remember this one time I was doing a lecture on the Spanish-American War. And midway through my presentation, one of my students was like, I see something in the textbook about the Filipino-American War. You didn't explain that to us, Mr. McAllis. Can you share some things? Didn't know. I was a social studies teacher, but I didn't even know about the Filipino-American War, right? I didn't know that Filipino Americans fought almost a 10-year war, right, with the United States. And I didn't know about the Great Delano Grape Strike. I didn't know a lot about the farm workers. I didn't know that we were part of the Zoot Suit riots. We were also beaten along other Mexican Americans. I did not know Filipino American history, and I was a history teacher teaching to Filipino Americans and other ethnic groups, right? I remember that night I was depressed, y'all. I was like, man, I had gone to college. I did everything right. So I decided to pursue my doctorate. I did apply to Chapman University, and it's at Chapman University where I started to learn about this beautiful theory called critical pedagogy, right? I read about Paulo Freire and pedagogy of the oppressed. I learned about the dismantling of the model ethnic studies program at Tucson Unified School District, right? In 2010 by state legislators. And after taking that course, man, I was empowered. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start to learn about my history. And I flew all the way to the University of Hawaii. I did research one of the very first Filipino American curriculums developed by a professor named Patricia Halagao. And it was that journey where I started to learn about my history, learn about my culture, right? She would then introduce, and she was my first mentor. I still consider her my mentor today, so I couldn't have done the work without her. But it was funny, after our meeting, she was like, why'd you have to fly all the way here to Hawaii? Most of the research within Filipino American history is in California. So she introduced me to amazing professors like Dr. Tracy Buenavista, Dr. Alison Tintiaco Cubales, Zeus Leonardo. I also start to meet organizers, right, who fought for Filipino American rights, like Manila Rice, Johnny Itliong. He's actually the son of Larry Itliong, who led the Great Dolino Grape Strike alongside Cesar Chavez, right? Again, I didn't teach that. Learned about Jose Rizal, our national hero. I started to read the literature, and I started to say that my history, my experiences are not to blame for, why I didn't get a 1.87, why I got a 1.87 GPA, right? It's because I didn't see myself in the curriculum. It was not an empowering curriculum. In fact, if you look at the research, a lot of social studies curriculum at the time was very Eurocentric. I argue it still is, right? My journey to learning about Filipino American history also brought me to the path of learning about my own history, where I was born, right? You got to know your history, right? You have to know yourself if you're to continue the work. And I just briefly want to share a quick story about my Lola. It won't be long, I promise. But that's my Lola, that's my grandma, right? And the thing that she has in her hand is actually her high school diploma. Right after she got her high school diploma, my Lolo, or my grandpa, swept her off her feet. They took a bus to Angeles City and they got married. They eloped, right? I didn't know that story, right? But again, it's just a beautiful story. So and unfortunately, all of my grandparents are no longer here. So for those who are here on this Zoom meeting, please, or this beautiful event, please learn your family story. It is a huge part of who you are, right? It's a huge part of ethnic studies. I started to learn about pre-colonial Spanish indigenous histories, right? And I even got tattoos, and I'm still learning and unlearning, right? And with all this great knowledge, what did I do? I brought it to the classroom. After school every Wednesday, our class, our club, the Filipino club, would then engage in Filipino American history together, right? I started taking my students to universities and college events. We learned about the history of Filipino food and its influence on and the colonial influence. You have to provide spaces for your students in the 90s, and still today, the students, they love to dance. So we actually had an event, an annual event called Anaheim's Best Dance Crew. Who remembers America's Best Dance Crew? Okay, I see you, Yvonne, right? So we mimicked America's Best Dance Crew, and we had a challenge with all the Filipino clubs in the district called Anaheim's Best Dance Crew, right? It's a part of who they are, your students. But we have to provide those spaces, right? I started to bring in guest speakers like Johnny Itliong, right? My students started to research about the Great Delano Grape Strike and presented it at conferences. We also donated to Typhoon Haiyan and other local organizations. We went to Philam Arts. Together, we learned art history. I even brought in mentors from the Lakas mentorship program to teach my students about college. And we also started to take action. This is actually us fighting in Veterans Day for Filipino veterans who fought during World War II, who were still not given their rights. So I became empowered and I said, you know what? I want to teach this amazing course called Ethnic Studies. It was not a course in our curriculum. So I sought the mentorship from three amazing professors, Dr. Alison Tintiangco Quibales, Dr. Suzanne Suhu, and a teacher in Los Angeles named Katara Webb, who was already teaching ethnic studies. So without them, you can't do this work alone, right? I credit them with helping me in teaching the very first ethnic studies class in the Anaheim Union High School District. And now it's a graduation requirement, right? By 2029, all students in high school throughout California have to take ethnic studies. And in the Anaheim Union High School District, students have to take it by 2026, right? So the requirement's actually earlier for the districts. So this is my beautiful class, my very first ethnic studies class, and I had a total of 45 students. That's a lot. Unfortunately, there was not one Filipino American in the class. It was that packed. A lot of students enrolled in it, but unfortunately, not one of my students were even able to attend it. So I had to tailor it to the student population. I had to learn more about Mexican American history. And again, I couldn't do this work alone. These are the first educators from Santa Ana Unified, from Los Al, from my own district that taught ethnic studies the very first time in the history of Orange County ethnic studies. So we were our own PLC. We met separately outside of our district meetings, right, to co-create amazing curriculum. And it's beautiful. Today, there are cohorts all over this beautiful state developing curriculum in ethnic studies. But at the time, we had to do it by ourselves, right? We had to mentor each other, right? Now, here's a picture of my very first ethnic studies class. Another area of research of mine is specifically within youth-led participatory action research, right? So ethnic studies, the study of race and power in American society, right? The study of histories that are often not told in traditional curriculum. Ethnic studies must also be community relevant. One of my areas of expertise is in youth-led participatory action research. And utilizing this model called YPAR, me and my students could start to engage in real change throughout our own communities. It's about problem-posing issues within your communities and making change. One of my students, Matt, led students to collect over 1,000 signatures, and they joined an organization called Orange County Communities for Responsible Development here in Anaheim, where they gathered over 20,000 signatures and got rid of short-term rentals in Anaheim. We've also fed the homeless and gave them, or the houseless, and gave them blankets, hygiene products. We've also fought against our corporate charter takeovers in our neighborhood public schools. We've also fought for hotel workers' rights here in Anaheim. A lot of my students' parents and their families actually work in our resort area. So we were just fighting for basic rights. We fought for day labor rights and for members in our community and our local Home Depots who are undocumented, to give them Know Your Rights information cards. We partnered with our feeder elementary school to do this. We fought for DACA, against school shootings, against Islamophobia. We even fought Wendy's. What? Why Wendy's? Because in Wendy's, they were serving slave labor tomatoes in their burgers. And we also fought for representation at the city council level and for Black lives. Now, real quick, in addition to being an educator and, I'm also a public servant in my community. This issue that we had with one of our neighborhood elementary schools and junior highs was against the charter movement, because they wanted to take over these public schools, and they were able to successfully take over Palm Lane, but we didn't let them take Ball Junior High. Led me to the path of believing that, you know what, if we are to make change in our community, I might as well do it as a public servant. At that same year, there was an opening to be on the local school board. So I did decide to run. I wanted to continue that fight, and I won. I actually have served the last 8 years of my career as a local elected official. I became the very first Filipino American to serve on the Board of Trustees in the city of Anaheim. But again, I couldn't do it without advice, without mentors. My mentors are and were Dr. Jose F. Moreno, who's actually a Chicano Studies professor at Cal State Long Beach, right? Former school board member Al Jabbar. And by the way, Jose Moreno was also a city councilman in the city of Anaheim. I also was able to do this amazing work with 2 school board members, one in Fullerton and one in Garden Grove. Again, you can't do this work alone. Walter Munitin and Jeanette Vasquez. And we were actually trained and mentored under this great program. I highly recommend it for those in your local communities. If you want to run for office, or if you know somebody, in the end of the day, not only do we need representation in our schools, right? But we also need representation in public office, right? We are the ones that need to make decisions for our communities, right? And educators are great to serve on school boards because you understand it, you work in it, you live it, right? Oftentimes, school board members aren't even in the field of education. They just use it as a springboard, right, to go into other other offices, right? And that ain't right. So I highly recommend the new American Leaders Program. It is a great program for people of color and women to serve on elected seats through every type of seat, right? So I became the very first Filipino American school board member. I was even president during the pandemic. These are some local electeds, Phil-Am local electeds throughout the state of California, like our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, City Councilwoman from Artesia, and former Mayor of Cerritos, Mark Polito, just to name a few. And as a board member, I'm incredibly proud to have passed resolutions that affect my students in this community directly, right? We passed a resolution honoring Native Americans. In fact, we also got rid of Columbus Day, and now we have Indigenous Peoples Day, right? We also have a Black Lives Matter resolution. We have the very first primary school ethnic studies and culturally responsive teaching resolution, right? We also have the anti-racist pedagogy resolution. And we now teach not just Cesar Chavez Day, but Larry Itliong Day throughout all of Anaheim Elementary School District, right? So it's possible to make change. This is some of the professional development that the teachers at Anaheim Elementary have engaged in the past 4 years. And then, towards the middle of my career, I also decided that I wanted to become a professor of education. So I did join California State University, Los Angeles. I'm so sorry, my dogs are barking. Hey, stop. So I did become one of a few Filipino American professors at the Cal State system. I teach specifically at the Urban Learning Program at Cal State LA. I also teach in the Master of Arts in Education for Social Change program. And I also teach in the post-baccalaureate program to get your ethnic studies certificate at Cal State LA. And I'll share a little bit more about that, because that is a different pathway that you can do. You don't have to do traditional pathways that I did when I was in doing my teaching credential. I also have a few publications. I did publish some work at UCLA, the very first Ethnic Studies Pedagogies Journal, and I do have a book chapter that I did write, co-author with Dr. Miguel Zavala, that you could find in the Handbook on Teaching Social Issues, the second edition. And at the end of next year, I will have a publication in the Handbook on Teaching Ethnic Studies that I wrote with UNESCO. So, the Postbaccalaureate Program Certificate in Ethnic Studies. First and foremost, I'm incredibly proud of this work. Whenever you transfer to a 4-year and get your bachelor's degree, please join us at Cal State LA. And first of all, I got to credit the amazing work of Dr. Miguel Zavala. He is really responsible for putting this program together. That's actually housed in the College of Ethnic Studies. But there are professors within the College of Education that do teach in this certificate program. And this program is meant for primary or high school teachers to teach ethnic studies, which again is a high school graduation requirement now, right? In fact, we need a lot of teachers at the school districts to teach this empowering curriculum, right? So in our program specifically, you can take a course in ethnic studies literacies, ethnic studies histories. You could take from a variety of different courses like Chicano studies, Pan-African studies, Asian American studies. So these are other courses. The specific course that I teach is actually EDCI 5070 and Urban Learning 5000, which specifically focuses on pedagogy, right? It's completely different, y'all. In the end of the day, yeah, it's important to teach our histories, but the way in which you teach ethnic studies has to be community responsive, right? It can't be direct instruction, y'all. So that is the course that I specifically teach. Hopefully some of y'all can join me. And if you don't, there are also great programs. CSUN has one that's focused specifically on Chicano studies. San Diego State University also has a K-12 ethnic studies teacher certificate as well. And these are new programs that have emerged in the last 2 years based on the ethnic studies graduation requirement that is now mandatory for all high school students. San Francisco has an amazing program. San Francisco State has an amazing program. In fact, one of my colleagues just went through this program and loved it. And UCLA has a program as well. So what am I doing now, right? I am extremely anxious, y'all. I'm going to be honest. These last 2 weeks have been extremely difficult for me because I was actually on the ballot this last November. This is me and my team, right? I decided to leave the elementary district as a board member, and I decided to run for the Anaheim Union High School District's Board of Trustees. So these are some of my former students, some of my community members. This is what we've been engaged in the last 3 months, right? There's never been a Filipino American on the school board as well. And I just want to make sure that our ethnic studies graduation requirement, this is a problem in districts throughout the state of California, right? It's a graduation requirement, but the implementation process has been very, very difficult. So that's one of the things that I want to achieve as a board member is to ensure that it goes smoothly. And amidst many things that we're struggling with education and wherever you are, I know that we just had an election and a lot of you might be feeling really worried and sad, but know that, during times like this, these are times where you come together with your community and affect local change. Right? At the federal level, we may have lost, but at the local level, you can do so much, but you have to do it with others, right? In community. I couldn't do this work by myself, right? I had to do it with my students. I couldn't even run for office without my students, without my family, without my community members. And it's possible. Right now, we are down just 1,000 votes. Every single day for the last 2 weeks, we were gaining 1%. And there's still about 5,000 ballots to be counted here in Anaheim. So please pray for me and my community that I win. I do have a lot of energy still. Teaching goes beyond the four walls, y'all. It goes into the community. And it has to be community responsive in order to affect real change. So yeah, I just wanted to briefly share about that. And yeah, regardless of, if I win or lose, I am still going to be very engaged in my community, a community that I love. Now, in addition, right, but you can't stop there. Going back to my slide when I was talking about youth-led participatory action research, this is actually one of my students in my first ethnic studies class. He had gathered signatures, right, to ban short-term rentals in Anaheim, and they were successful. Unfortunately, it was reversed with our last mayor, Mayor Sadu. But we could fight. We'll fight again, right? It's about training the next generation of leaders as well. So I am not the only one that was on the ballot. My former student also ran for my current seat at the elementary district for the school board. And he's also down about 1,000 votes as well. So please pray that we are successful at the end. We should know in about 2 more weeks, right? As I reflect on my journey, and it's been a crazy journey, I would have never, I was supposed to be in the medical field, y'all. When I told my family I wanted to be an educator, they're like, what is that? Why you make no money being an educator? It's because it wasn't traditional for Filipinos to be educators, right? As I reflect on this journey that I've been a part of, right? In the end, change is possible, right? Change in the teaching field, right? I know in STEM education, we need a lot of people of color, right? Males to be in these spaces. You can do anything you want in this world if you have the right mentorship, right? But you must seek it, right? You must seek it yourself. I had to fly to Hawaii to learn about Filipino-American curriculum. Seek it, right? You must have allies. You can't do this work together. And you have to have community, right? You must do it in community with others, right? It is possible. And if you need help, reach out to me. Here's my contact information. Please take a screenshot, right? That's my Cal State LA email address. That's my school board email address. And if you need help, if you want to run for office, let me know. I'll give a recommendation to be part of our trainings. And, we do trainings 4 times a year. Or not me, but the New American Leaders Program. It's possible, right? So thank you. It's been such an honor. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my journey. I went real quick, which is great because now I have 15 minutes, right, Yvonne? I have 15 minutes for Q&A.
Yes, first off, yes, everyone. I just want to say thank you. Do you want to unmute? Thank you so much for an amazing, amazing keynote and sharing your story and experiences. Super inspiring. I know we had some questions. I know Nicole was keeping track of them in the chat. If you have some more, feel free to throw them in, but maybe Nicole can share some of the questions that came up and
Let's do it.
Dr. McAuliffe can try to answer some of them.
Definitely. So the first question that came up was from Suzanne Buffy. They asked, with the most recent legislation by the governor, how are we training for ethnic studies in schools without a Chicano studies degree? How can I access those trainings? And she also provided her email, which we will get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The Los Angeles, first of all, where are you at, right? Because there's trainings all over the state, right? In fact, there's even people, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, be careful of the trainings you go to. Whenever there's policy, someone always wants to make that money, y'all. Look up that person who's doing the training and see if they're actually within the field of ethnic studies. The sad reality of ethnic studies is a lot of the people doing these trainings don't even have a background in ethnic studies. If they are not talking about race and power in American society, if they are not talking about having hard conversations, then it's just multicultural education. Sprinkle a little Filipinos this month, sprinkle a little Vietnamese history, a little African American history month. That ain't ethnic studies. I mean, it's a part of it, right? So I highly recommend the Los Angeles County Office of Education, the Association for Raza Education, the People's Education Movement. What else? Recommendations. We at Cal State LA have a summer institute, right? That we do every summer. Right now, there's a training at the National Association for Multicultural Education at in Anaheim, right down the street. Long Beach Community College will have one in April. It's called the Ethnic Studies Pedagogy's 5th Annual Summit. Man, just look them up. There's a ton of them. And just remember my advice. Make sure they actually have a background in ethnic studies. They're trying to water it down. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of ethnic studies today. They're watering down our curriculum. We can't let that happen.
Thank you. Your second question that came up in the chat was from Rio Medina. How
Okay.
do you prepare students for various roles they may play once they become educators?
How do we prepare our students once they become educators to have various roles?
Mhm.
Is that the question?
Yeah,
Right.
how do you prepare students for the various roles they
That's a
may
great
play
question.
once they become educators?
When I first became a teacher, right, I had a lot of educators. And by the way, I taught in the high school that I attended, right? So it was really weird for a lot of teachers to see me in my own high school. They were like, what the heck are you doing here? But I'm not going to lie, y'all. Some of the teachers, some of the people that I had worked with, you know, it wasn't a great experience, right? In fact, sometimes I would also be and it's intentional after it happens the third time, right? When they say, are you supposed to be here? Like I'm making copies and they're like, are you supposed to be here? I'm like, yeah, you know, because they thought I was young and I was young. But after a few times when they kind of, you know, it's like ageism, right? Just because you're young and you know, when I first started teaching ethnic studies, I also I was discriminated a lot on, right? People don't like change. First and foremost, when you are young and in the field of education, sorry, my dogs are doing all this crazy stuff. Whenever I'm on Zoom, they know that I'm busy. So they always do all these crazy things. Join committees, start any opportunity that's given to you when you see them online, right? Sometimes you may feel intimidated that you could take on a role like that, but no, you have to participate in as many things as possible within your school site, right? The beautiful thing now that it's 2024, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of grants that are allotted to folks like us who can lead in teaching various courses uh, and also work with your union, right? It's about being in collaboration, be a rep. Again, you have to go beyond the 4 walls. You can't just teach from 8 to 2:30, right? So you'll see it. It'll exist. Just participate, participate, participate. The first 2 years is going to be difficult because, you know, you're getting tenure, right? You have to be strategic, right? And the end of the day, sometimes in some spaces, they want to push you out and they'll find ways to push you out, right? So you have to be strategic the first 2 years. But after tenure, start joining committees, start joining different organizations, get involved, and then speak up, right? In every space you have. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you totally did. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paulo, are you ready for the next one? So Jonathan Ortega asks, how do we address and tailor education to children whose cultures we are not familiar with?
Remember when I was sharing that I started to teach my first ethnic studies class, I didn't have one Filipino, right? And throughout my PhD program, I had researched everything and anything about Filipino American curriculum. So I had to, and this is a different time, right? I had to seek the knowledge from other ethnic studies teachers. I had to attend conferences. I had to attend summits, right? I had to unlearn a lot of things because when I was doing my bachelor's degree and my undergraduate degree, a lot of the ways in which social studies education was very Eurocentric. At the time, I had to seek it for myself. But now there's amazing conferences, summits, programs where you can get this curriculum. I also recommend going to the Liberated Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. They have amazing curriculum that's already designed. All you have to do is download it. They have PowerPoints. It's aligned with the ethnic studies standards. And just be in community with others who are doing it. Again, there are great community organizations in Los Angeles, right? The People's Education Movement, ARE, they're there in LA. There's actually more in LA than here in Orange County, right? So I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for educators who started that work before me in LA. And acknowledge them, right? Acknowledge that they were the first. Knowledge is seeking, yep. And I am still seeking my indigenous ways of knowing, right? That's actually my next journey. I've been going to the Philippines because I want to know about myself. If you seek it, you will find it. A lot of our documents, just like in Mexica culture, has been destroyed by Spanish colonization, right? Seek it, keep learning, keep unlearning, right? Did I answer your question? I'm going all over the place. Let me know how much time I have because I want to make sure I answer everyone's questions.
Yeah, you answered my question very much, and thank you very much. I appreciate the information that you're providing us. Like, it was very informative. Thank you.
Absolutely. And the scary thing is that a lot of these programs and grants, let's pray they don't, right? Together we have to fight even more, right? Because the next administration is, threatening to get rid of the Department of Education at the federal level, right? That's a lot of programs and grants that are going to be going away. But more than ever, we have to fight collectively. So, yeah, I want to add that to the advice I just gave earlier. It's scary, right?
We have about 2 minutes left for questions. I see one in the chat. Nadia Taylor asks, I teach at a community college in early education. We continue to try to bring in male students. Do you have any advice?
Yes. I was actually visiting Cal State Fullerton not too long ago. And what I loved about this program that they had was that they have a club on campus specifically recruiting, right? Because at the end of the day, just like me, in a lot of our cultures, to teach was not really something that was common, right? You have to make students realize that they could be educators themselves. I think the population in the United States is 70% white women still, right? And males of color, what I love about Cal State Fullerton is that they target specific men of color, right? To teach in all fields, going into all colleges. So my only recommendation is just to go to different colleges, right? Within the community college and just present, share the pathway, opportunities to be educators and the need, right? The data is there. The statistics on the lack of men of color in schools. In primary schools especially, I mean, it's almost non-existent, y'all. But also we need to also fight within the field of education leadership. As an education leader, it's important that we also hire, right? People of color, men of color, right? That's just the facts, y'all. Because if our students can't see themselves as educators, right? Why did it take me until going to college just to see myself, to be a possible educator? It's possible. A lot of us don't realize we can be. And again, right, the counseling services, the tracks, like, for me, it was like, oh, there's your pathway. You just have to take these classes. Check, right? Yeah, it's just make others realize that you should be a teacher, right? You could be a teacher. Wow, that was a great presentation. You should be a teacher. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question either.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
did. I mean, it's something that we think about a lot. And I was saying in the chat that at a preschool level, it's even more daunting. And yes, it's like less than 2% in preschool and the early primary years are male teachers. So definitely have a lot of work to do.
Oh, thank you for that question. Oh, absolutely, Emily. And by the way, someone asked me, what's this background? So this is a mural that's actually in Filipino town in Los Angeles. And again, it's another mural that I didn't even know that existed until I started learning about Filipino American history. But it's there. Just seek it. You will find it, right? That's my biggest piece of advice. Just seek it and you will find it. Seek allies, seek mentorship. I know right now the pandemic really made us very individualistic, but you gotta get out there. You gotta be in community with others. But also be critical, right? Because in this world, everyone's trying to make money. That's just the reality. People try to package everything like they're experts. Look them up, right? Just saying. And be yourself, right? Be honest. My first 10 years of teaching, I was very fake, right? A lot of my past, I'm not ashamed of, right? Those are the experiences that I experienced, and they happened for a reason, right? And most importantly, know yourself, know your history, right? Our grandparents, our elders, they're getting old, they're passing away. There's so much I would have loved to learn from my grandparents and my uncles and aunties who have passed, right? Spend time with them, right? Be with them, right? Honor them. Do oral histories on them, right? I always share this with my students is when you learn about them and you share their stories, right? They live forever through you. So yeah, that's another last piece of advice, y'all. It's just, and ethnic studies is just, it's all subjects. It's interdisciplinary. Regardless of what you teach, you can incorporate ethnic studies in all courses, in all grade levels, right? It's a story of us. And yeah, we really want to leave it at that. So thank you again for that opportunity, y'all.
I know we don't want to cut this off, but we have more sessions to kick off, everyone.
Okay. Well,
if you are a presenter currently in this session, I'm going to recommend that you hop over to your Zoom link so that you can start your tech checks for the 10 a.m. sessions. And for everyone else, it is time to add your name to the pot for the opportunity drawing. This is not going to be done live on camera, but as you continue to do these sessions throughout the day, of course, big thank you to Dr. Paolo. Before we continue, we're jumping on. We thank you so much for honoring this time and space with your presence. But everyone, if you can scan this QR code, should you wish to join, the more participation that you have throughout the day, the more chances you have to win. You'll come back to this survey after each session you attend, so feel free to bookmark it. I'm seeing something in the chat saying the form is unavailable. Stand by, technical difficulties. It's a Saturday. No one's computer wants to work on a Saturday. Give us 1 second. Yvonne just dropped a link to it in the chat. Go ahead and click it. Keep coming back to it throughout the day, and we'll drop it multiple times. I know it gets pushed up as people continue to ask. Bookmark this, go off to your sessions. Every time you complete a session, put your name back into the pot. Now that the link is in the chat, we're going to go ahead and give you QR codes for the next 2 sessions. If you haven't already registered for a 10 a.m. session, the first one is the Male Mentor, Building Strong Relationships with Students, facilitated by Tariq Smith. Tariq Smith is a Systems of Support Advisor for LAUSD. We also have Empowering Women in STEM and CTE, Creating Inclusive Classrooms, facilitated by Sarah Valdez. Sarah's journey to becoming a physics teacher is both personal and intentional, so she'll be sharing some of her experience as well. She is currently a Southeast High School teacher in STEM education. She teaches AP and general physics for high school students. So if you have not already registered, please feel free to register now. Once your name is in the pot, feel free to prepare for your next session, get some water. As always, thank you all for your participation. We know it's a Saturday, it's early. Coffee is probably needed, but we are so excited to see you in the next 2 sessions. Thank you everyone for coming. If you've pre-registered, you should see the link in your email. You can grab it from there for whatever reason. If you can't find it, feel free to register again and it'll ask you to join now that the time is approaching. The recording for the keynote will be made available on the Change website, so stay tuned. And let us know if you have any questions. Hi, William. I hope you're doing well too. We see so many familiar names. It's very exciting. Hi, Tulia.
I hope you're doing okay, Nicole.
Well, we're doing lovely, William.
Good,
It's so
good.
wonderful to see you.
It's been a while.
It has. We'll have to catch up soon. Don't worry.
Good, good, good.
Let us know if you have any questions as you go off to your 10 a.m. sessions.
Hi, excuse me, I have one question.
Of course.
Is it the session from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.?
So the duration of the conference is from 9 till 1 today, but there's sub-sessions. So let me get you the link to the flipbook. What happens is any of the sessions you'd like to attend today, you have to actually register for each session.
Oh, I only this one.
No,
So
that's okay.
I need to
That's
I
okay.
need to register for the different one so I
Yeah,
can
so
have
you'll
the
register for each one that you're interested in attending.
so I can have the different link, right?
Yes, let me put the link in here right now for you.
Okay, could you help me? Bruce has sent me, please.
Yes, of
Send,
course. So on this link right here, you'll see big register now buttons next to each of the sessions. You just gotta click that red circle and it'll take you to the Zoom registration page.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much. I got it. Thank you.
Of course. See you soon.
See you. Bye.
Any other
Nice to
questions before we close the
see.
room?
Yeah, we see a few folks left. Anyone have any questions? Yeah, the flip book is really helpful to see the schedule of events.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I have a question. If I'm really interested in both, but I can only attend one, at the end, will I have the other recording?
Yes, the recordings for all the sessions will be available on the website. So even if you have, I know it's hard when you want to go to both, but the recordings for everything will be made available.
Okay, thank you very much.
Elizabeth, we do have a certificate of attendance. It's very similar to the one we did for Teach for LA. So after the conference, you'll get emailed the link. You just have to confirm that you attended at least one session, which you came to the opening, so you're good. And then it will email you the certificate of attendance.
Thank you. That's a great information.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking great questions.
Last call for final questions, everyone. We have to close this room and open the next sessions.
I'm gonna change because the opportunity drawing QR code, I'm gonna check the closing or check all of them actually.
Okay.
Let's make sure.
I am hopping to the one with Leia.
Okay, I'll
Thank
see you there.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.